Jack Dalton sat on a hard bench in the middle of a small room. The walls were white and smooth. There were no corners. There were no windows. The light came from the walls themselves. It was a soft blue light that never changed. The air was cold. It smelled like clean metal. And nothing else. Jack wore a gray suit. It was not his uniform. His uniform was gone. His ship was gone. Most of his friends were gone too. He was the only one left from the security team of the USS Liberty. He sat with his hands on his knees. He did not move much. He saved his energy. He knew he was a prisoner. He knew where he was. He was on a ship owned by an alien species. They called themselves the Krell. The Krell were tall and thin. They had pale blue skin. Their eyes were solid black. They did not show emotion. They spoke in flat voices. They valued logic above everything else. To them, feelings were a weakness. They believed that humans were young and simple. They thought humans were easy to understand. They wanted to know how humans fought. They wanted to know where the human fleet was hiding. They thought they could just take the information from Jack's head. They did not ask. They did not negotiate. They just took. Jack knew this was coming. He had waited for 3 days in this room. He had eaten tasteless food. He had slept on the hard bench. He had waited for someone important to come. The door made a hissing sound. It slid open smoothly. Woman walked into the room. She was a Krell. Her name was Vria. She was the commander of this ship. She was taller than the others. She wore a dark robe that touched the floor. She held a device in her hand. It looked like a circle of silver metal. There were small lights on it. She walked toward Jack without fear. She did not bring guards. She did not need them. She believed she was completely safe. 2 guards stood outside the door. They held long weapons. They watched through the open door. Vria stopped in front of Jack. She looked down at him. Her black eyes did not blink. Jack looked up at her. He did not stand up. He kept his hands on his knees. He looked calm. He was not smiling. He was not frowning. He just looked at her. Via tilted her head. She was confused by his calmness. Most prisoners were scared. They begged. They cried. They tried to make deals. Jack did nothing. He just breathed slowly. Vria spoke first. Her voice sounded like wind moving through dry grass. It was soft but cold. She said that she needed his access codes. She said she needed to know the location of the human base. She said resistance was useless. Jack listened to her. He did not answer right away. He waited for a moment. Then he spoke. His voice was rough because he had not used it in days. He said he had nothing to say. Vria did not get angry. Anger was illogical. She simply stated that she would take the information anyway. She raised the silver device. She explained how it worked. It would connect to his mind. It would read his thoughts. It would find the secrets hidden in his memory. She said it would not hurt him. She said it was a simple process. She believed him to be simple. She thought his mind would be like an open book. She thought she would see neat rows of data. She thought she would find logic and order. She did not understand humans. She did not know that humans were messy. She did not know that human minds were full of chaos and fire. Jack knew this. He had been told about their technology. He knew what it could do. He also knew what it could not handle. Vria stepped closer. She reached out with her long fingers. She held the device near his head. She waited for him To pull away, she waited for him to fight. She expected him to try to escape, but Jack stayed still. He looked into her black eyes. He wanted her to see something there. He wanted her to see that he was ready. He was not hiding his secrets behind a wall. He was not locking them away. He was leaving the door open. He knew that if she walked in, she might not come back out. Vria saw no fear in his face. She saw only a quiet strength. It made her pause for a second, but her logic told her she was superior. She told herself that humans were weak. She told herself that this was just a procedure. She pushed the doubt away. She placed her hands on the sides of his head. The silver device touched his skin. It was cold. Jack did not flinch. He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. Via pressed a button on the device. A low hum started to fill the room. The lights on the device turned from blue to red. Via smiled a small smile. She thought she had won. She thought this would be easy. She did not know that she had just made a big mistake. The hum of the silver device grew louder. It vibrated against Jack's skin. It was a cold vibration that felt like ice touching his temples. Viria closed her black eyes. She focused her mind on the task. She prepared herself to walk into Jack's thoughts. In her own species, the Krello minds were like libraries. Everything was organized. Every thought had a place. Every memory was filed away neatly. There was no noise. There was no confusion. Logic ruled everything. She expected Jack's mind to be the same, just smaller and less developed. She thought she would walk in, find the file she needed, and walk out. It should have taken only a few seconds. Vria pushed her consciousness forward. She crossed the bridge from her mind into his. She expected to see clean lines and structured data. Instead, she was hit by a wall of sound. It was not a physical sound. It was a mental noise. It was like standing in the middle of a crowded market where everyone was shouting at once. There was no order. There was no silence. Colors flashed behind her closed eyes. She saw bright reds and deep blues that did not match any data stream. She felt sudden spikes of heat and cold. These were not temperatures in the room. These were feelings inside Jack's head. She tried to move deeper. She tried to push past the noise to find the military codes. She looked for the location of the human fleet. She searched for the command codes of the USS Liberty, but every time she reached for a specific thought, it slipped away. It was like trying to hold water in her hands. The more she squeezed, the faster it leaked out. The thoughts were not stored in one place. They were connected to everything else. A memory of a ship was connected to a memory of a friend. Memory of a battle was connected to a feeling of loss. She could not separate the data from the emotion. Via frowned. In the real world, her hands began to shake slightly against Jack's head. She did not open her eyes. She was too busy trying to sort the chaos. She sent a mental command for the noise to stop. She ordered the mind to organize itself. In the Krello collective, this command would work instantly. The mind would obey the logic, but Jack's mind did not obey. It pushed back. It did not push with a wall. It pushed with more noise. It flooded her with images. She saw a bright yellow sun. She felt the warmth of it on skin. She heard laughter. Then the image changed instantly. She saw fire. She felt pain. She heard screaming. The switch was too fast. Her logical brain could not process the change. Jack sat still on the bench. His breathing was steady. he did not fight. Her with anger, he did not try to block. Her, he just let her be there. He knew that his mind was not built for her. He knew that being human was too much for her. Humans lived with contradictions. They loved and hated at the same time. They feared death but ran into danger. They were messy. Vria was not used to messy. She was used to clean lines. She tried to find a single thread of truth. She grabbed onto a memory of a map. She thought she had found the base location. But as she looked closer, the map changed. It became a drawing made by a child. It was not a military map. It was a memory of home. The data was tainted by sentiment. Sweat began to form on Vria's pale blue forehead. This was not normal. A scan should not cause physical stress. Her heart beat faster. The hum of the device changed pitch. It went from a low tone to a higher whine. The lights on the silver circle turned from red to orange. She tried to pull back. She tried to disconnect her mind from his, but the connection was stuck. Jack's mind was like a whirlpool. It had pulled her in too deep. The emotions were not just images now. They were physical sensations. She felt grief in her chest. It was heavy and hard to breathe through. She felt joy in her hands. It made them twitch. She was experiencing a lifetime of human feeling. In a few minutes, the guards outside the door shifted their weight. They could hear the change in the device. They looked at each other. They had never seen Commander Vria struggle. She was always perfect. She was always in control, but now her shoulders were hunched. Her robe moved as she trembled. Jack opened his eyes. He looked at her. He did not look triumphant. He looked pitying. He knew what was happening. He knew that she was drowning in things she could not understand. He spoke softly. His voice broke the hum of the machine. He told her to stop. He told her that she was not ready for this. Via did not answer. She could not speak. Her mouth was open but no sound came out. She was lost in the storm. She realized that she had underestimated the prisoner. She thought she was the hunter, but now she felt like the prey. The noise got louder. The colors got brighter. The simple scan had become a battle for her own sanity. She tried to scream inside her mind, but the human chaos swallowed the sound. The noise inside Ria's head became a roar. It was no longer just sound. It was a flood of images that moved too fast to see clearly. She tried to stand her ground. She tried to use her training. She tried to sort the memories into files, but the memories did not want to be sorted. They fought back. She saw a man in a green uniform. He was lying on the ground. There was blood on the dirt. Jack felt sadness for this man. The sadness was heavy. It felt like a stone in her chest. Vria did not understand why Jack would feel pain for someone who was already gone. In her world, death was just data. It was an end of function. But here, death was a wound that never healed. She tried to move away from that image. She looked for something else. She found a memory of a small house. There was a woman inside. She was holding a baby. The feeling was warm. It was bright. It felt like sunshine. Vria tried to analyze this feeling. She asked herself what use this memory had. It had no tactical value. It had no strategic worth, but Jack held on to it tightly. He valued it more than the codes for his ship. This confused Vria. Her logic systems began to error. She could not calculate the value of love. It did not fit into any equation. The more she tried to understand it, the more her head hurt. The pain spread from her mind to her body. Her hands shook violently against Jack's temples. The silver device was getting hot. Smoke began to rise from the edges. The lights on the circle flashed wildly. They went from red to yellow to white. Via wanted to pull away. She wanted to stop the scan, but she was stuck. Jack's mind had wrapped around her consciousness. It held her tight. She was trapped in the storm. She saw another memory. This one was of a fire. A city was burning. People were running. Jack felt anger. He felt a desire to protect. He felt a need to fight back. These emotions were sharp. They cut through her mental defenses. Drea gasped for air in the real world. Her breath came in short bursts. She felt like she was drowning. The cold air of the holding cell did not help. She felt hot and cold at the same time. Her nose began to bleed. A thin line of blue blood ran down her pale skin. It dripped onto her dark robe. She did not wipe it away. She could not move her arms. They were locked in place by the force of the connection. The guards outside the door stepped forward. They were worried. They had never seen their commander like this. One guard reached for his weapon. He thought Jack was attacking her, but Jack did not move. He sat still. He watched her suffer. His face was calm. He knew he was not attacking her. Her own mind was attacking her inside the link. The chaos got worse. Vria tried to scream. She tried to send a signal to her ship's computer. She wanted help. She wanted them to cut the power, but the signal could not get out. The human noise blocked everything. It was like static. On a radio, she heard voices in her head. They were not her voices. They were Jack's voices. They spoke about hope. They spoke about fear. They spoke about tomorrow. The Krellel did not think about tomorrow. They only thought about the now. The concept of hope was foreign to her. It was illogical. Why hope when you can plan? But Jack's mind showed her that planning was not enough. Sometimes you only had hope. This idea broke something in her logic core. The device began to make a cracking sound. The metal was warping from the heat. Jack's skin where the device touched was red. But he did not pull away. He let her stay. He let her see everything. He wanted her to understand. He wanted her to know what humanity was. It was not just biology. It was not just technology. It was the will to keep going when things made no sense. Vria felt her own memories starting to fade. The clean lines of her past were getting blurry. The noise from Jack was overriding her. She was losing herself. She was becoming human. The thought terrified her. She valued her logic above all else. It was who she was now. It was slipping away. She tried to force a command. She ordered the mind to submit. She used her authority. She used her rank, but Jack was not a soldier in her army. He did not owe her loyalty. He did not respect her rank. He only respected his own kind. His mind pushed back harder. The pressure increased. Vria felt like her head was going to explode. The pain was unbearable. It was worse than any physical injury. It was a pain in the soul. She realized that she had walked into a trap. She thought she was the predator. She thought she was the hunter, but she was the one being hunted. The human mind was not a weak thing. It was a fortress made of fire, and she was burning inside it. The lights on the device turned solid white. The hum became a high-pitched shriek. Vria knew she could not hold on much longer. She was at her limit. The scan was not taking information anymore. It was giving information, and she could not Handle the gift, the high-pitched shriek. Reached its peak, it was a sound that hurt the ears, it was a sound that hurt the mind. The silver device in Rhea's hands glowed bright white, it was too hot to touch, smoke poured from the cracks in the metal, the smell of burning circuitry filled the small room. It mixed with the smell of ozone, it smelled like lightning. Via's eyes were wide open, they were no longer black. They were filled with white light. She could not breathe, the air felt too thick, the emotions were too heavy. She felt 1,000 years of human pain in 1 second. It was too much for her logic, it was too much for her brain. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her throat was locked. Something inside the device snapped. There was a loud pop. Sparks flew into the air. They landed on the floor and died. The connection broke suddenly. It was like a rope that was cut. Vria was thrown backward. She fell onto the hard floor. She hit the ground with a heavy thud. The silver device fell from her hands. It rolled across the floor. It sparked and died. The lights on it went out. The hum stopped. Silence returned to the room, but it was not a quiet silence. It was a heavy silence. It was the silence after a storm. The air still vibrated with energy. Via lay on the floor. She gasped for air. Her chest heaved up and down. Her blue skin was pale. Sweat covered her face. Her nose was still bleeding. The blue blood stained her lips. It dripped onto her dark robe. She tried to move her arms. They felt weak. They felt like they belonged to someone else. She tried to stand up. Her legs shook. She could not find her balance. Her mind was still spinning. The images were still there. She could still feel the grief. She could still feel the hope. It was like a ghost inside her head. She looked at her hands. They were trembling. She had never trembled before. She was a commander. She was always in control. Now she was broken. She felt small. The door hissed open. The 2 guards rushed into the room. They held their weapons ready. They looked at Jack. They thought he had attacked her. They pointed their guns at him. Their fingers were on the triggers. Jack did not move. He stayed on the bench. He put his hands on his knees. He looked at the guards. He did not look dangerous. He looked tired. He looked sad for them. He knew they did not understand. The guards looked at Vria. She was on the floor. She was hurt. One guard knelt down to help her. He reached out to touch her shoulder. Vria waved him away. She did not want help. She wanted to understand. She pushed his hand aside gently. Drea pushed herself up. She sat on the floor. She looked at Jack. Her black eyes were wide. There was fear in them. She had never felt fear like this. It was not fear of death. It was fear of the unknown. She looked at the broken device. It was useless now. The scan had failed, but it had not really failed. It had succeeded too well. It had shown her too much. She tried to speak. Her voice was weak. It cracked. She asked Jack what he was. She asked what kind of species he was. Jack shook his head. He said he was just a man. He said he was just human. He said that was enough. Drea stood up slowly. She leaned against the wall for support. She wiped the blood from her face. Her hand came away stained blue. She looked at the guards. She told them to lower their weapons. The guards were confused. They did not understand. Their commander was hurt. The prisoner was safe. Logic said they should shoot, but Rhea said no. She knew better now. She knew that violence would not work. She had tried to take his mind, and his mind had fought back. It had won. She realized that humans were not weak. they were strong. In a way she could not measure, their strength was in their chaos, their strength was in their feelings, logic could not beat feeling. Jack stood up. From the bench, he stretched his legs. He rubbed his temples where the device had been. His skin was red, it would heal. He looked at Vria, he spoke to her. Softly, he told her that she should have asked. He told her that humans share when they trust, but they fight when they are forced. He said his mind was not a vault, it was a home, and she had broken in. Vria listened. She did not argue. She did not have logic to argue with. The scan had changed her. She was not the same commander. She had seen the human soul, and it was terrifying. The power in the room had shifted. Jack was not a prisoner anymore. He was a teacher. Vria was the student, and she had learned a hard lesson. The guards lowered their weapons. They waited for orders. Vria looked at Jack. She knew she could not keep him here. It was too dangerous for her crew, for her people. She took a deep breath. She made a decision. The war was over for her. She would not fight this enemy again. She looked at the broken machine on the floor. It was a warning. She would not make the same mistake twice. Vria stood straight. She fixed her dark robe. She wiped the last of the blue blood from her chin. Her hands were still shaking, but she hid them in her sleeves. She looked at the guards. She told them to open the cell door. She told them to give Jack his belongings. The guards hesitated. They looked at each other. This was against protocol. A prisoner was not released after an interrogation. But Vria was their commander. Her word was law. They moved quickly. One guard brought a box. It had Jack's watch. It had his dog tags. It had his uniform. Jack took the box. He did not say thank you. He just nodded. He began to chain his clothes right there in the room. The guards looked away. They did not want to see him. They were afraid of him now. Varia watched him. She did not look away. She wanted to remember this moment. She wanted to remember the human who broke her mind without throwing a punch. Jack put on his gray shirt. He put on his boots. He clipped the dog tags around his neck. He looked like a soldier again. He looked ready. Via spoke to him. She said that she would escort him to his shuttle. She said he would not be harmed. Jack said he knew. He said she looked tired. Vria admitted that she was. She said his species was exhausting. Jack smiled a small smile. He said that was a common complaint. They walked out of the cell. The corridor was long and white. Other alien crew members watched them pass. They whispered to each other. They had heard the scream. They had seen the smoke. They looked at Jack with wide eyes. They did not see a prisoner. They saw a monster. They moved out of his way. They pressed themselves against the walls to let him pass. The walk to the shuttle bay was quiet. No one stopped them. Vria walked beside Jack. She did not trust him completely, but she respected him. They reached the airlock. Jack's shuttle was waiting. It was a small human craft. It looked rough compared to the smooth alien ship. Jack stopped at the ramp. He turned to face Rhea. He told her that humans did not want war. He said they only wanted to be left alone, but he said they would defend themselves. He said next time she should just talk. Viria nodded. She said there would not be a next time. She said she would make sure of that. Jack walked up the ramp. The door closed behind him. The engines started. The shuttle lifted off. Vria watched it fly away. She stood there until it was just a dot in the stars. Then she turned back to her ship. She had work to do. She went to the communication room, she sat at the main console. She opened a channel to the Galactic Council. This was a high priority message. Her face appeared on the screen. She looked different. Her eyes were less cold. There was something human in them now. She spoke to the council leaders. She told them about the human prisoner. She told them about the scan. She told them about the failure. She said that human minds were not compatible with their technology. She said that trying to force them was dangerous. She recommended that Earth be marked as a restricted zone. She said no one should try to invade them, she said. No one should try to scan them, she said. Humanity was not ready for the galaxy. But the galaxy was not ready for humanity. The council listened. They saw the fear in her voice. They agreed to her request. The file on Earth was updated. It was marked with a red warning, do not engage. Meanwhile, the shuttle docked with the USS Liberty. Airlock cycled. The door opened. Jack stepped onto the deck. Commander Corinne White was waiting for him. She was a tall woman with short brown hair. She looked worried. She had seen the alien ship power down. She had seen the shuttle leave. She ran to Jack. She asked him if he was okay. She asked what they did to him. Jack touched his temples. They were still red. He said he was fine. He said they learned more than he did. Corinne looked confused. She asked what that meant. Jack said it meant we are safe for now. He said the aliens will not bother us again. Corinne did not fully understand, but she trusted Jack. She ordered the crew to prepare for departure. The engines of the Liberty hummed to life. The ship turned away from the alien vessel. Jack went to the bridge. He sat in the captain's chair. He looked at the main screen. The alien ship was still there. It did not move to stop them. It did not raise its weapons. It just watched them go. Jack felt a sense of relief. He knew this was not the end. There would be other species. There would be other challenges. But today humanity had won. They had won without firing a shot. They had won by being themselves. Corinne stood beside him. She asked him if he wanted to file a report. Jack said he would do it later. He said he just wanted to go home. The Liberty engaged its faster than light drive. The stars stretched into lines. The ship jumped away. Alien space was left behind. Via watched the ship disappear. She closed the channel with the council. She sat alone in the communication room. She closed her eyes. She could still feel the echo of Jack's mind. She could still feel the warmth of the sun. She could still feel the grief of the fallen soldier. It was painful, but it was also beautiful. She understood now why humans fought so hard. They had so much to lose. She touched her own head. The headache was gone, but the memory remained. She knew her people would never be the same. The galaxy had changed today. A new power had been recognized. It was not a power of guns or ships. It was a power of spirit. Via stood up. She walked back to the command deck. She had to lead her crew, but she would lead them differently now. She would teach them to be careful. She would teach them that some things cannot be understood. Some things must be respected. The USS Liberty was gone, but the warning remained. The stars were vast, but humans had found their place in them. They were not prey. They were not pets. They were survivors, and the galaxy would learn to fear that survival. Vria looked at the empty space where the human ship had been. She whispered a single word. It was a human word she had Learned in the scan, she said safe. Then she turned to her duties. The mistake was made, the lesson was learned.